I don't hear the crates anymore. I hear my own pulse, hammering against my ribs like it already knows something I don't. My knees are pressed into dust and old rope, and my hands won't stop shaking long enough to hold the phone steady. Somewhere above me, boots cross the warehouse floor. Slow, patient. A man who knows I can't run forever. She's still inside. The voice is close. 2. Press both palms over my mouth to keep the sound of my own breathing from betraying me. My phone screen glows 3% battery. A countdown I can't stop, ticking down alongside whatever's left of my life. I don't call the police. I don't call my sister. I don't call anyone who'd ask questions I can't answer without getting them killed too. Instead, my thumb finds a number scrawled inside a stolen notebook. One I took by accident, tucked between receipts and hotel stationery, next to 3 words that were never meant for someone like me. Only 4 emergencies. No name, no explanation. Just a warning that felt, an hour ago, like something out of someone else's life. This qualifies. God, this qualifies. I press call before I can talk myself out of it. It rings once, twice, then silence. Someone's there. Someone's listening, and not hanging up. I don't even know his name. I only know that if I lose this connection, I might not get another chance to hear a voice that isn't shouting mine like a threat. Please, I whisper. So quiet, I barely hear it myself. Don't hang up. Across the city, in a penthouse where the skyline looks like it's holding its breath, Damien Moretti stares at the screen lighting up his desk. Unknown number. Only 3 people alive have this line. None of them would call at 2 a.m. without a reason he'd already know about before his phone finished its first ring. Which means whoever this is, they shouldn't have it at all. He almost declines it. His thumb hovers. Then he answers. Nothing at first. Just breathing, ragged, uneven. Someone working hard not to make a sound and failing. Then a whisper. Not a demand. Not a threat. Not the practiced calm of an enemy trying to sound harmless. Just 5 words. Trembling and small. Please. Don't hang up. Damien doesn't move from his chair, but something in him goes very still. The particular stillness of a man recalculating everything he assumed tonight was going to be. Who is this? He says. Not a question. A demand wrapped in quiet. No answer. Just the sound of her holding her breath, then footsteps. Not hers. Heavier. Closer. A voice, muffled through the phone, calling out to someone else. Find her. Damien is already standing. Already crossing to the window. Already reaching for the second phone on his desk. The one that connects to Marco. To the men who move when he says move. Where are you? He says, low even. The tone of a man who has asked this question before and always gotten an answer. I don't know exactly, she breathes. A warehouse. Old. It smells like salt and rust. There's water nearby, I think. I heard Harbor District. It's not a question either. If you stay on the phone, she whispers, I think I can stay alive. That line lands somewhere Damien doesn't examine too closely. He's heard men beg for their lives in every possible register. Pleading, bargaining, threatening. He has never heard someone ask simply to be stayed with. Then I'm staying, he says. Talk to me. Tell me everything. Starting now. Between shaking breaths, she does. She tells him she's a maid, nights mostly, at a hotel whose name she's too afraid to say out loud in case someone's listening on his end too. She tells him she's quiet, invisible, the kind of person guests forget the moment she leaves the room. She tells him that earlier tonight, running behind on turn-down service, she opened the wrong door. A suite that wasn't supposed to have anyone in it yet. Men in expensive suits. Voices too careful, too quiet. The kind of quiet that means something is being decided that shouldn't be decided in a hotel room at all. She backed out before anyone saw her face. She's almost sure of that. Almost. But on her way out, in the panic of not being caught, she picked up something from beside the nightstand. A flash drive small enough to slide into her apron pocket. Small enough that she assumed it belonged to some forgetful businessman. She didn't think about it again until the hallway lights cut out behind her, and a man's voice said her floor number, like he already knew exactly where to find her. I don't even know what's on it, she says. I swear I don't. I just took it because I thought. Doesn't matter what you thought, Damien says. Matters what they think you have. Above her, the footsteps stop. Emily's whole body goes rigid. She presses herself deeper into the gap behind the crates. phone clutched so tight her knuckles ache. A shadow falls across the gap in the wood. A masked man crouches, tilts his head, and looks directly into the space where she's hiding. I found her, he says quietly. Not to Emily, to someone else. Someone listening on his end too. Emily's breath dies in her throat. 200 feet above the city, Damien is already moving, already speaking rapid coordinates into the second foot, already promising himself he will not be too late for a woman whose name he doesn't even know yet. Stay exactly where you are, he tells her. But the masked man is already reaching through the gap. The line, for one unbearable second, goes silent. 6 hours earlier, Emily Carter had no reason to believe tonight would be any different from the 1,000 nights before it. She'd folded towels, straightened minibars, smiled at guests who looked past her like she was part of the furniture. She had no idea that a wrong turn down a hallway, a door left unlocked by mistake, and a 5-second decision to pick up something that wasn't hers would end with her hiding in the dark, praying a stranger's voice was the only thing standing between her and whatever came next. To understand how she got here, you have to go back to the moment she stepped into a room she was never supposed to enter. The hand closes around empty air. Emily doesn't know how she moves. Some instinct older than thought throws her sideways, deeper into the gap between the crates, and the masked man's fingers rake through nothing but dust and shadow. He curses low and shifts his weight to crouch further into the gap. Emily, Damien's voice, still in her ear, still steady. Don't make a sound. Not one. She bites down on her own knuckles instead. Footsteps. A second man's voice farther off. Anything? A pause that stretches long enough to feel like drowning. No, the masked man finally says, straightening. Wrong row. He walks away. Emily doesn't move for a full minute, doesn't breathe right for 2. When she finally exhales, it comes out as something between a sob and a laugh. Silent, shaking her whole body. Still there? Damien asks. Still here? Damien asks. Still here, she whispers. Good, he says. Now tell me how a hotel maid ends up hiding from professional killers, with government secrets in her apron pocket. It's not the question so much as the way he asks it, like he already suspects the answer will be almost embarrassingly ordinary, and it is. Emily has worked at the Blackstone Hotel for 6 years, nights mostly because nights pay better, and nobody fights her for the shift. She knows which guests leave the biggest messes and which ones leave the best tips, though those are rarely the same people. She knows how to fold a duvet into hospital corners in under 90 seconds. She knows every housekeeping cart's squeaky wheel by sound alone. Nobody remembers her name. She stopped expecting them to. Senators, actresses, tech executives. They look through her like she's part of the wallpaper, mutter, "Thank you" at the general shape of a uniform, and forget she exists the second the door clicks shut. It used to sting. Now it just is what it is. Invisible has its uses. Invisible means nobody notices when you're tired or lonely, or crying quietly in a supply closet because your mother's medical bills are due again, and the tips this month were thin. Her co-workers love her anyway. She's the one who remembers birthdays, who covers shifts without being asked twice, who sneaks day-old pastries from the kitchen to the night shift security guards because nobody should work till dawn on an empty stomach. Inez from the 3rd floor calls her the heart of this place. Emily always laughs it off. She has one secret dream, small and stubborn. A bakery. Nothing grand. A little storefront with a bell over the door, and flower dust in the afternoon light. She's never told anyone the name she's picked for it. She's afraid saying it out loud will make the wanting too real, and too real things can be taken away. Tonight was supposed to be ordinary. Turn-down service, floor 14, room service pickups, home by 4. Then she opened the wrong door. The Ashcombe suite wasn't on her list. She was covering for Denise, who'd gone home sick, and the room numbers had blurred together after 11 hours on her feet. She knocked twice, heard nothing, and let herself in with the master key, already reaching for the light switch out of habit. The lights were already on. 5 men sat around the suite's private dining table, and not one of them looked like a guest relaxing after a long flight. 2 wore suits worth more than Emily's yearly salary. One she recognized, vaguely, from news footage, as a judge whose name she couldn't place fast enough. Another had the stillness of men she'd learned over the years to avoid making eye contact with. Careful men whose calm felt rehearsed. The shipment moves through the eastern route next week, Once the judge confirms the injunction won't. The voice cut off the instant the door opened. 5 heads turned toward her at once. Emily had exactly one working thought. Keep your face empty. So sorry, she said, already backing out. Eyes down, voice pitched into the flat, apologetic register she'd perfected over 6 years of walking into other people's business. Wrong floor. My mistake. She pulled the door shut before anyone answered. She did not run. Running looks guilty. She walked, evenly, back toward the service elevator, heart slamming so hard she could feel it in her teeth, replaying fragments. Shipment. Eastern route. Injunction. Words that didn't belong in a hotel suite at midnight. She never would have thought about it again if she hadn't glanced down while passing the adjoining room and seen, half hidden beneath the edge of the bed skirt, a small black flash drive. She almost left it. She tells Damien this part twice, like it matters that he believes her. I almost left it. But some old habit. 6 years of picking up things guests forgot, wallets and phone chargers and reading glasses, made her hand move before her brain caught up. She slid it into her apron pocket, meaning to hand it to Lost and Found in the morning. She was in the stairwell 4 floors down, when the hotel's PA system crackled. Lockdown protocol. All staff remain in place. Someone, somewhere above her, had already noticed something was missing. Across the city, Marco Delgado doesn't like what he's finding. Damien sent him to the harbor district 20 minutes ago, with 4 men and a simple instruction. Locate the girl. Don't engage unless necessary. Instead, Marco is standing in the doorway of a second warehouse, 3 buildings down from where Emily is hiding, staring at a scene that makes his stomach turn even after 15 years in this business. Bodies. 14, no, 15. He corrects himself, counting again to be sure. Laid out with a precision that isn't rage, isn't even personal. Pinnavel, professional, methodical, the work of people who kill witnesses the way other people file paperwork. Boss, Marco says into his radio, voice tight. Whoever's hunting your girl isn't rival muscle. This is a burn crew. They're erasing everyone who might have seen anything tonight. A pause on the line. Then Damien's voice, colder than Marco's, heard it in years. Then she's the only one left who can talk. Copy that. Moving in the dark behind the crates, Emily finally asks the question she's been circling for 10 minutes. Who are you? Silence stretches long enough that she wonders if the core dropped. Then, quiet, almost reluctant. My name doesn't matter right now. That's not an answer. No, Damien agrees. It isn't. She hears something shift on his end. Car doors, engines, the particular hum of a convoy accelerating through empty streets. Just keep breathing, he says. I'm 3 minutes out. 3 minutes feels like nothing when you're saying it. It feels like forever when you're counting it down in the dark. They're back, Emily whispers. Boots, closer this time and more of them. Not one man searching anymore. Several, moving in a pattern. Methodical, closing off exits she didn't even know existed. Marco, Damien says into the second line, voice flat and fast. How far? 90 seconds, boss. 90 seconds. Boss. 90 seconds. Emily doesn't have 90 seconds. She can see a flashlight beam sweeping the gap between crates, inching closer with every pass. A voice. The leaders, she's sure of it now, low and almost bored, calls out into the warehouse like he's speaking to a child playing hide and seek. We know you're in here, sweetheart. Make this easy. Nobody answers. The flashlight beam stops 2 feet from where she's curled. 5, he says. Emily's hand tightens around the phone so hard her fingers ache. 4. Damien, she breathes. And it's the first time she's said a name at all, even one she made up in her head an hour ago just to have something to hold on to in the dark. I'm here, he says. I'm not hanging up. 3. She closes her eyes. Some part of her brain, absurdly calm, thinks, I never told my mother I loved her enough. I never opened the bakery. The thoughts come fast and useless. The mind trying to make peace with an ending it can't stop. 2. The world detonates. The warehouse's south doors don't open. They cease to exist. Steel and rust exploding inward in a wall of light and noise that throws 2 of the masked men off their feet. Emily's ears ring. her whole body flattening instinctively against the crates as debris rains down around her. Then, gunfire, controlled, disciplined, coming from multiple directions at once. Black shapes pour through the breach. Men in tactical gear, moving with the unhurried precision of people who have done this before and will do it again. Muzzle flashes strobe the dark. Someone screams. Someone else goes silent mid-sentence. Emily presses herself as small as she can make her body go, hands over her ears, praying to every version of God she's ever half believed in. And then, a shift in the sound. Not more chaos, purpose. Through the smoke and strobing light, a man walks into the warehouse like the bullets flying around him are simply weather. He's decided not to acknowledge. He isn't rushing. He isn't crouching for cover like the men around him. He walks upright, unhurried, dark suit, catching the muzzle flashlight. And there is something in the way the gunfire seems to part around him. His own men, closing ranks, absorbing angles, clearing his path without being told. That makes Emily understand even before she sees his face exactly who this is. Emily Carter, he calls out, not loud, but it cuts through everything else anyway. Say something so I know where you are. Here. Her voice cracks. I'm here, He finds the gap in the crates in 3 strides and crouches. And for the first time, Emily sees the face that's been a voice in her ear for the last hour. He's not what she expected. She built some image in her mind. Cold eyes, cruelty worn like a second skin. Instead, she finds a man watching her with an intensity that isn't threat at all. It's assessment, concern, disguised as calm. You're bleeding, he says, nodding at her forearm, a shallow cut she hadn't even noticed. I'm fine. Her voice breaks entirely, and every terrified, useless minute of the last hour crashes over her at once. She's shaking so hard, her teeth chatter. Curled into herself, nothing at all like the dangerous witness. 5 armed men had spent the night hunting through a warehouse district. Just a woman in a stained apron. Mascara tracks down her face, hands pressed white-knuckled against her knees. You actually came, she says, and it comes out disbelieving, like she's still not sure this isn't a fever dream she's having somewhere in the dark. Something in Damien's expression shifts. Not quite a smile, but close to it. You stayed alive long enough, he says. That's the hard part. This is easy. He offers his hand. She takes it. The path out isn't clean. Gunfire still cracks through the warehouse in bursts, and Damien keeps his body angled between Emily and every open line of sight, moving them both toward the breach in short, calculated bursts. Stay behind me. Move when I move. She nods, doesn't trust her voice, follows. They're 20 feet from the doors when a masked man breaks cover to their left, weapon rising. Damien puts him down without breaking stride, one motion, controlled, and doesn't look back to confirm. Emily stumbles over a length of chain in the dark, catches herself against a crate, and in the scramble feels something slip from her apron pocket and clatter to the concrete. Wait. She turns back. Emily, move. It fell, I dropped it. Damien's eyes drop to the small black shape on the ground between them, and for half a second, everything else, the gunfire, the smoke, the men dying around them, seems to fall away from his attention entirely. He bends, picks it up, turns it once in his fingers. Something in his face changes. Emily has known him for barely an hour, only ever as a voice, and now as a face streaked with someone else's blood. But she recognizes the shift instantly. The moment a man realizes the thing he came to rescue isn't a woman in danger, but a woman carrying the danger itself. Later, he says, pocketing it, voice tight in a way it wasn't before. Move. They clear the doors into the harbor night as the last of the gunfire tapers into silence. Black SUVs wait, engines running. Marco already sweeping wounded men toward the vehicles. Across the lot, near the tree line, a figure stands watching. Unmasked now, a lean man in a grey coat, unbothered by the bodies of his own men scattered behind him, studying Damien and Emily with an expression of almost clinical interest. He doesn't run. He simply steps back into the dark, unhurried, and calls out one last thing before the shadows take him. This isn't over, Moretti. Damien doesn't answer. He pulls Emily into the SUV, slides in beside her, and as the convoy tears out of the harbor district into the sleeping city, he finally looks down at the flash drive in his palm like it's something that might detonate. The war, though neither of them says it aloud yet, has already begun. The safe house sits at the end of a gravel road 40 minutes outside the city, tucked behind a wall of pines that swallows the sound of the highway until it's like it never existed. Emily stands in the kitchen doorway at dawn, still wearing yesterday's blood-flecked apron, watching armed men move through the property with the calm efficiency of people resetting a chessboard after a war. She hasn't slept. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees the flashlight beam stopping 2 feet from her hiding place, hears the countdown, feels the concrete shudder as the doors blew inward. "You should eat something," Damien says from behind her. He's changed out of the blood-marked suit into something plainer, sleeves rolled to the forearm, and for a moment he looks less like the man who walked through gunfire without flinching, and more like someone who hasn't slept either. "I can't." Her voice comes out smaller than she wants it to. "Damien, those men, the ones in the warehouse, some of them didn't walk out of there." "No," he agrees. "They didn't. Because of me. Because of the men who decided a hotel maid needed to disappear rather than risk what she might have seen." His tone sharpens, not at her, but at the idea itself. "They were already planning this, Emily. Before you ever walked into that suite. You didn't start a war. You survived one that was already coming." She doesn't believe him. Not yet. But she nods anyway, because arguing feels like more than she has energy for. The flash drive takes Damien's analysts 6 hours to fully break open, and when they do, nobody in the room says anything for a long moment. It isn't just shipping routes. It's 3 senators receiving quarterly payments funneled through shell companies in the Caymans. It's a federal judge's calendar cross-referenced with dates matching 4 unsolved disappearances. It's photographs, meetings in private rooms, handshakes between men who've spent careers publicly denouncing each other, audio files, hours of them, voices discussing an upcoming election like it's a product already sold to the highest bidder, and underneath all of it, buried in a folder labeled with nothing but a date, assassination contracts, names, amounts. One of them, Damien notices with a stillness that doesn't reach his face, is a judge who ruled against his own organization 8 months ago. "This isn't mafia business anymore," Marco says quietly, reading over his shoulder. "This reaches Washington." Damien closes the laptop, which means whoever's hunting her isn't hunting a witness. They're protecting an empire. 3 days pass and something shifts in the house that nobody quite plans. Emily can't sit still with fear for long. It isn't in her. Not really. Not once the immediate danger fades into background noise. By the second morning, she's in the kitchen at 5 a.m, pulling ingredients from a pantry stocked for men who eat protein bars and nothing else. And by 6, there's real breakfast on the long table. Eggs biscuits, something that smells like a mother's kitchen, and a dozen armed men who haven't eaten a home-cooked meal in months are suddenly fighting over the last biscuit like teenagers. "Miss Emily," one of the younger guards says shyly, "did you really used to work at the Blackstone?" 6 years, she says, sliding another plate across the counter. "My cousin got married there," said the maid who turned down their room, left a note wishing them well. "That you?" Emily flushes and doesn't answer, but the guard grins like he already knows. By the 4th day, she's cleaning cuts and stitching a gash on a guard named Tomas, who took shrapnel during the extraction and refused to see anyone but the lady who makes the eggs. By the 5th, she's sitting on the porch steps at night reading aloud from a battered paperback to a soldier named Duke, who's 22 and shot through the shoulder and homesick in a way he won't admit out loud. Everyone calls her Miss Emily now. Nobody decided it. It simply happened, the way nicknames do among people who've decided someone belongs to them. Damien watches all of it from the edges of rooms, saying little, and something in his expression, when he thinks no one's looking, has stopped looking like assessment and started looking like assessment and started looking like something else entirely. "You're good with them," he tells her one night, finding her alone on the porch after Duke's fallen asleep mid-chapter. "They're good boys pretending to be hard men," she says. "It's not difficult to see. Most people don't bother looking. Most people didn't spend 6 years being looked through," she says, "and there's no bitterness in it, just fact. You learn to see the parts of people nobody else checks for." He doesn't answer that, but he sits down beside her on the steps, and neither of them moves for a long time. It's Marco who notices first. Small things at first. A supply truck arriving 20 minutes before its scheduled window. A guard rotation that doesn't match the roster. Nothing damning on its own. But Marco has survived 15 years in this business by trusting the things that don't quite add up. "Boss," he says quietly, pulling Damien aside on the sixth night, "only 4 people knew this location. You, me, Thomas, and Victor. Say it." "I'm not saying anything yet. I'm saying something's wrong." Damien doesn't get the chance to decide what to do with that information. The first explosion hits the north perimeter at 2047 a.m., close enough to the timing of that first phone call that Emily, jolted awake, thinks for one disoriented second she's still in the warehouse. Then the gunfire starts, and it's real, and it's here. "Emily!" Damien is in her doorway before she's fully upright, already pulling her toward the hallway. "Move, now!" The house is chaos. Thomas shouting coordinates, Duke limping toward a defensive position despite his stitched shoulder, floodlights cutting through smoke as attackers breach the tree line with an accuracy that makes Damien's stomach turn cold. They aren't searching. They're not guessing at the house's layout. They know exactly where everything is. Emily barely makes it through the kitchen's back exit, Damien's hand locked around her wrist as a second explosion tears through the room they'd just left. She stumbles into the tree line, lungs burning, heart hammering the same rhythm it hammered a week ago in a different dark. Behind them, the safe house burns. Only 4 people knew where it was, and as Damien pulls her deeper into the trees, jaw tight, eyes scanning the chaos for a face among his own men that shouldn't be there, one thought settles over him with the weight of certainty. Someone he trusted just tried to have her killed. They regroup at a second safe house before sunrise. Smaller, colder, a converted warehouse office Damien apparently keeps for exactly this kind of night. Nobody sleeps. Tomas nurses a burn along his forearm. Duke's shoulder has reopened, and nobody has the heart to tell him to sit down. Marco stands by the window with a rifle across his knees, watching the tree line like it might still be lying to him. Damien doesn't speak much. Emily has learned, in a week of knowing him, that his silences carry weight, that he's not absent. He's calculating, running through faces and names and timelines with the same cold precision he brought to walking through gunfire. "Only 4 people knew that location," he says finally to the room, though his eyes are on nobody in particular. "Me, Marco, Thomas, Victor." Thomas straightens, offended. "You think it's me? I think I don't know anymore," Damien says. That's the problem. The room goes quiet in a way that feels dangerous. Old loyalties suddenly worth less than they were an hour ago. Emily doesn't sleep either. She sits in the corner of the office with the laptop Damien's analysts used to break open the flash drive, headphones on, replaying the audio files for the 3rd time. Not because anyone asked her to, because something has been scratching at the back of her mind since the warehouse. Something she couldn't place until now. A voice too careful, too quiet. The kind of quiet that means something is being decided that shouldn't be decided in a hotel room at all. She'd heard 5 voices in that suite. She'd only ever consciously registered 4. The judge, whose name she'd half recognized, and 3 others she'd filed away as dangerous men in expensive suits. But there'd been a 5th voice too, further back. Softer, someone she barely noticed because he'd sounded almost bored by the conversation happening around him. She plays the recording again. A voice discussing shipping manifests, offshore transfers, dates. Her stomach drops. She's heard that voice since. In this house. At the dinner table 3 nights ago. Laughing at something Thomas said. Calm. Measured. Familiar. In the worst possible way. She pulls off the headphones and finds Damien across the room, staring at nothing. Jaw tight. Damien. Her voice shakes more than she wants it to. "I need you to listen to something." He listens twice. His face doesn't change the first time. The second time, something in it goes very still, the same stillness she remembers from the phone call, except colder now, older, like a door closing somewhere behind his eyes. "Where did you hear this voice before?" he says, though it isn't really a question. "The hotel suite. He was in the back of the room. I almost didn't notice him." She swallows. "He was here, at dinner, 2 nights ago." Damien doesn't ask who she means. He already knows. He's known Victor Romano for 11 years. Brought him in as a 19-year-old accountant with a talent for making dirty money look clean. Trusted him with numbers no one else was allowed to touch. Made him one of maybe 5 people on Earth who could reach him directly at any hour. "He's the one who leaked the safe house," Damien says quietly. Not a question. "I don't know that for certain. I do. His voice has gone flat, controlled, the sound of a man containing something enormous by sheer force of will. He's the only one of the four who wasn't with me the night you called. He had time. He had access. And now he has a voice that puts him in a room with 3 senators and a judge planning your death. Marco, listening from the doorway, goes pale. Boss, if Victor's been feeding information to the syndicate, he's had years, Damien says. He didn't just leak a location. He gave them my private number. The room absorbs that in silence. Emily watches something break loose behind Damien's eyes. Not rage. Not yet. Something closer to grief. The particular pain of learning a man you called family has been selling you out since before you knew his name. Emily can't sit with it. The guilt arrives all at once, crushing, undeniable. 15 bodies in a warehouse. A burned safe house. A man's 11-year betrayal exposed because of a flash drive she never should have touched. I'm leaving, she says, already moving toward the door, pulling on a jacket that isn't hers. This is because of me. All of it. If I hadn't picked it up, if I'd just left it under that bed. Emily, Damien's voice cuts through the room, sharp enough that even Marco flinches. I mean it, Damien. People are dying, good men. Thomas has a burn on his arm because of me. Duke can't lift his own. Stop! He crosses the room in 3 strides and catches her arm, gently but immovably, the same grip that pulled her out of gunfire a week ago. Look at me. She does. Eyes wet, furious at herself for crying in front of him again. If you walk out that door, he says, low, steady, they find you within a day, maybe less. And when they do, there's no warehouse, no rescue, no second chance. They'll never stop hunting you, Emily. Not now. Not after everything you've seen. And if I stay, if you stay, he says, they answer to me. It isn't a comfort, exactly. It's a promise, and it lands heavier than comfort would. Emily stands there shaking, caught between the guilt that wants her running and the exhaustion that's been building since 2 a.m. a week ago. And somewhere in that space, she makes a choice that surprises even her. She's done running. Okay, she says quietly. I'll stay. Not because she's weak, because for the first time since that phone call, staying feels like the braver thing. The call comes 40 minutes later. Marco answers it, face draining of color as he listens, and passes the phone to Damien without a word. Victor's voice, when it comes through the speaker, sounds exactly the way Emily remembers it from the recording. Calm, unbothered, a man discussing business rather than betrayal. I have Rico, he says, Damien's oldest soldier, a man who's guarded him since before Marco ever joined the organization. He's alive, for now. Victor, return the girl, Victor says, cutting him off. Or I send you pieces of him for the next week. Your choice, Damien. You always did like having choices. The line goes dead. Damien stands motionless for a long moment, the phone still in his hand, and when he finally looks up, Emily sees something in his face she hasn't seen before. Not calm, not calculation, war. Victor's headquarters sits inside a converted shipping terminal on the industrial edge of the harbor, 3 miles from the warehouse where all of this began. Close enough that Emily can feel the symmetry of it as the convoy rolls out at midnight headlights, dark engines low. Rico's being held somewhere inside the main building, Marco says, spreading a terminal blueprint across the hood of the lead SUV. 2 floors of shipping offices, converted into something closer to a fortress. Victor's had 11 years to prepare for a night like this. So have I, Damien says. Emily sits in the back seat, hands folded so tightly her knuckles have gone white. She wasn't supposed to come. Damien argued for 20 minutes that she stay behind guarded safe, and lost because Emily pointed out with a calm that surprised them both, that she's the only person alive who can put a voice to Victor's face on record. And if tonight ends with him dead before that happens, the conspiracy dies with him instead of being exposed. Stay in the vehicle, Damien tells her now for the 3rd time. Whatever happens, stay down. I know, Emily. I know, Damien. He looks at her a moment longer than the situation requires, then turns and gives the order to move. The battle starts before they even reach the gates. Snipers positioned along the terminal's rooftops open fire the instant the convoy crosses the access road and the night detonates into chaos. Armored SUVs peeling into defensive formation return fire, cracking from a dozen directions. the deep percussive thud of something larger than gunfire shaking the ground near the east perimeter. Contact left. Someone shouts. Tomas, arm still bandaged from the safehouse fire, is already moving toward cover with a rifle. Emily didn't know he could still lift. Damien breaches the outer fence with 6 men moving through the chaos with the same unhurried precision Emily remembers from the warehouse. Except tonight the calm has an edge to it. Something sharpened by 11 years of betrayal finally coming to a head. Emily watches from the SUV's rear window as the warehouse district around them begins to burn. A fuel line catching somewhere near the docks. Flames licking up into the black sky, throwing everything into flickering orange light. Then she sees it. A glint high on the terminal's north tower, brief, metallic, catching the firelight at an angle that makes her blood run cold. A scope aimed at Damien, who's crossing open ground toward the terminal's side entrance. Exposed, unaware. Emily doesn't think. She's out of the SUV and running before Marco can grab her, screaming his name across 40 feet of open ground. And the confusion of it, a woman appearing out of the dark, shouting, is enough to make Damien turn just as she reaches him and throws her full weight into his shoulder. The world cracks. The bullet that should have found the center of Damien's chest instead punches into the concrete where he'd been standing a half second before, close enough that Emily feels the heat of it pass her cheek. For a moment, neither of them moves. Damien stares at her, at the spray of concrete dust across her face, understanding arriving in pieces. The sniper, the angle, the half second that would have ended everything. You saw him, he says, disbelieving. The reflection. I saw the reflection. She's shaking, adrenaline and terror tangled together. Are you? I'm fine. He pulls her down behind a stack of shipping containers as return fire finds the tower and the glint disappears. Emily, I know what I just did. Her voice cracks. Can we discuss it after the part where people stop shooting at us? Something that might, in any other circumstance, have been a laugh moves through his chest. Fair, he says, and pulls his weapon, and together they move toward the terminal's breached entrance. They find Victor on the top floor, in an office with a wall of windows overlooking the burning docks, already halfway through stuffing a leather bag with the contents of a wall safe. He doesn't look surprised to see them. If anything, he looks tired, the calm mask finally slipping into something closer to resignation. 11 years, Damien says from the doorway, weapon raised. 11 years, Victor. You were always going to lose eventually, Victor says, not turning around. I just decided to be on the winning side when it happened. Where's Rico? Basement. Alive, if your men move fast enough. He finally turns, and there's the flash drive in his other hand. A second one. A backup. Of course there was a backup. Clutched like the last card in a losing hand. You should let me walk out of here, Damien. What's on this makes the first drive look like a parking ticket. No, Emily says. Victor's eyes flick to her, and something in his expression shifts. Surprise, maybe, that the maid he tried to have killed twice is now standing in his office speaking directly to him. I already sent it, she says, and pulls her phone from her jacket, screen still glowing with a live broadcast feed. 20 minutes ago. Every recording, every document, every name on that drive, to 6 news outlets, the FBI field office, and a federal prosecutor I found through your own contact list. It's live right now, Victor. It's been live for 15 minutes. Victor's face drains of color. You're already on television, Emily says. Quiet, steady, the same steadiness that once talked herself through a countdown in the dark. The judges, the senators, the assassination contracts, all of it. There's nowhere left for you to run to that hasn't already seen your face. For a moment, Victor simply stares at her, at the invisible maid who somehow became the one thing 11 years of careful betrayal never accounted for. Then he runs. He's fast for a man his age, vaulting through the shattered window onto the fire escape bag, clutched to his chest, and Damien is a half second behind him, weapon raised, shouting something. Emily doesn't hear over the roar of her own pulse. The fire escape gives way 3 floors down, old iron weakened by the heat rolling off the burning docks below, and Victor's scream is short, swallowed almost instantly by the fire and the chaos and the collapsing structure beneath him. Silence after, or something close to it, gunfire tapering into sporadic bursts, then nothing at all. By dawn, the terminal is secured. Rico is alive, bruised and dehydrated, but breathing. pulled from a basement cell an hour before sunrise. The broadcast Emily sent has already detonated across every major network. Senators resigning before breakfast. A judge's chambers raided by federal agents. A conspiracy 11 years in the making, collapsing in a single night. Damien wins the war, but he stands over 4 bodies laid out along the terminal's loading dock. Men who followed him into gunfire because he asked them to. Men who won't be going home. And there's no triumph in his face at all. Only the particular exhaustion of a man who's paid a war's price in full. Emily finds his hand in the grey morning light and doesn't let go. 3 weeks later, the Blackstone Hotel looks exactly the way it always did. Brass fixtures polished to a shine, lobby music, too soft to notice unless you're listening for it. Guests moving through the revolving doors without a second glance at the woman standing near the staff entrance in street clothes instead of a uniform. Emily lets herself in through the service corridor one last time. Nobody stops her. A few of the day shift housekeepers recognize her and wave. And one, Inez, still working the 3rd floor after all these years, pulls her into a hug, tight enough to squeeze the breath out of her. "They said you quit," Inez says. "Didn't believe it until I saw you." "I did." Emily manages a smile. It's time. Inez doesn't ask why. The news has been impossible to avoid for 3 weeks. Senators resigning. A judge under federal indictment. A mafia war that burned through half the harbor district in a single night. Nobody's connected the quiet maid from floor 14 to any of it. And Emily intends to keep it that way as long as she can. Her locker is exactly where she left it, tucked at the end of a row of identical grey doors. Inside, a spare uniform, a photo of her mother curling at the edges, a half-used bottle of hand lotion, a folded apron she's worn through more shifts than she can count. Small things, an entire life measured out in objects that fit inside a canvas bag. She holds the apron a moment longer than the rest. 6 years of being invisible in this building. 6 years of guests forgetting her name before the door finished closing. She used to think that made her nothing. Standing here now, she thinks maybe it made her exactly the person capable of surviving what came after. Patient, watchful, used to seeing the things other people walked right past. She zips the bag closed and doesn't look back at the locker. She's halfway across the lobby, bag over her shoulder, already rehearsing the goodbye she plans to give the city. A bus ticket in her pocket. A town 3 states away, chosen mostly because nobody there has ever heard the name Damien Moretti. When she sees him, no bodyguards, no black SUVs idling at the curb, no weapons that she can see. Just Damien, standing near the lobby's grand staircase in a plain grey coat, hands in his pockets, looking entirely out of place among the marble and gold, like a man who's forgotten how to occupy ordinary rooms. "You weren't supposed to know I was here," Emily says. "Marco has a habit of knowing things." A faint smile. "I asked him to tell me if you came back. I was going to call. Eventually. It isn't quite a lie. I have a bus at 6. I know." He doesn't move to stop her, doesn't reach for her bag, doesn't do any of the things she half-braced herself for. He just stands there looking at her with an openness she's never seen on him before. Not the calm control of the warehouse, not the cold precision of the war room, just a man. "Can I ask you something before you go?" he says. She nods. "Why did you call me that night?" Out of everyone. A stranger's number in a stolen notebook. Emily thinks about it honestly, for the first time, instead of just surviving the memory. "Because I didn't want to die alone in the dark." And something about the words "next to your number only for emergencies" made it feel like whoever wrote it down trusted that number to actually save someone. "I didn't have anyone else who would." Damien is quiet a moment. Then, "Can I answer something you never asked?" "Okay, why I answered." He looks past her, toward the doors, like the words are easier to find somewhere out there than in her face. Every call I've ever gotten on that line wanted something. Money, power, revenge, somebody's blood, usually mine, or somebody else's. I stopped expecting anything different a long time ago. He looks back at her. "Yours didn't want anything. You just asked me not to hang up. Nobody's ever asked me for that before. Just to stay. Not to fix anything. Not to save anyone. Just to be there while you figured out how to keep breathing." A small, private smile. "I didn't know how much I needed someone to ask me that until you did." Emily's throat tightens. "I would have died that night if you had. Hung up, I mean. I know. he says simply. No weight of guilt in it. Just fact. The same way she once told him the truth about invisible people learning to see what others miss. He doesn't ask her to stay. That's the thing she notices most. No promise of protection. No offer of the kind of luxury that would make leaving foolish. No argument at all, really. Just 3 words, laid down like an open door. Stay. Leave. Whatever you want, Emily. I need you to know it's actually yours to choose. Nobody's hunting you anymore. Nobody needs saving. You don't owe me 6 years of gratitude for one long night. That's not why I'd stay, she says, before she's fully decided to say it. I know that too. She looks at him, rarely looks the way she's learned to look at people the world stops seeing, and understands with a clarity that settles rather than startles her, that for the first time in longer than she can remember, someone isn't looking through her. He's looking at her, not the invisible maid, not the witness who needed protecting. A woman whose one desperate phone call rearranged the entire shape of his life, the same way his answering it rearranged hers. She sets her bag down on the marble floor and takes his hand. Months later, it's 2 a.m. again. Damien's phone buzzes on the nightstand of a house that isn't a safe house anymore, just a home. Quiet, ordinary city lights glittering through the window the way they always have. Emily stirs beside him, glances at the screen lighting up the dark. Unknown number. She laughs softly, half asleep, propping herself up on one elbow. Are you going to answer that? Damien looks at the screen a moment, then at her, and something in his face, steady, certain, entirely unguarded, makes her chest ache in the good way. I always will, he says, and he answers. If this story kept you up past 2 a.m. too, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Did Damien and Emily's story hit different? Subscribe now, because next week, we're diving into an all-new mafia romance that'll have you hooked from the first line. Drop a comment telling me which character you loved most, Damien or Emily, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new chapter. Share this with someone who needs a good cry tonight. See you in the next story. Same time, same obsession.